Preston, my guy.
Good afternoon, bro. Wagwan.
This time we talking about a TV show on Netflix called The Midnight Club.
The Midnight Society. The Midnight Club. The what now?
On The Midnight Club on Netflix, the story is about 8 teenagers in a hospice that get together every night and share scary stories with each other. Throughout the season, you find out that the hospice itself has stories of its own. Each episode, the kids share another story. So it kind of comes off as an anthology series. The main storyline, which follows our main character, Alanka, this storyline unravels throughout each episode. Although they're telling stories, you still have the main story and the main mystery going on behind everything else. It has elements of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Obviously, you know, with them telling stories to each other, and they either have a little quote, kind of like how the Midnight Society from Are You Afraid of the Dark would say, like, submit it for the approval of the Midnight. Hold on. Submit it for the approval of the. Submit it for the approval of the. You know what I'm trying to say. For me personally, I like the series. For Mike Flanagan, I really like Dr. Sleep. But this show is really sad because they deal with a lot of death in this show. As it is a horror story, it does deal with horror elements. From Mike Flanagan, I think personally for me, I like this series better. I like more of a horror element, more of like jump scares, tension building. I like stuff like that. I don't really care for like slow burns and like when the story is kind of just lingering. They're okay, especially when the payoff is done well. But I just feel like a lot of times I personally want to be entertained. If I want to use my imagination, I'll just read a book. That's just how I am. But I feel like Dr. Sleep was done amazingly well. I love Dr. Sleep. I think Haunting of Hill House was good. Again, I might be in the minority, but I don't feel like Haunting of Hill House is super amazing. I do feel like it's a good story. It's a good TV show. I'm just not fanboying over it because I personally, it's just not my preference. I feel like for this one, having a real emotional element to it kind of drew me more so to the characters, but with the horror aspect of it, it kept me entertained. But what was even more creative to me is that we still had this underlying main storyline with our main character as well as our supporting cast. I feel like that was done really well because the relationship between them, the character growth, the character building, I think it was done really well because I feel like it's kind of hard to bring a certain amount of characters together and have those characters tie in well. But I do feel like a couple of characters probably got relegated to the background mainly because they had to put focus on certain other things and certain other people for the plot. But at the same time, it wasn't like people got completely ignored. And I appreciated that. For this show being a horror show, I think it pretty much did its job. I don't think it was the scariest show. And it did have childish elements to it in terms of we are dealing with teens, but I don't feel like it was immature. I feel like it was a very, very mature show. I feel like it was a very interesting idea of a show, and it was based off a novel. It was really nice to see horror in this way. It was cool because the first episode really spoke to the jump scare element and how overdone it is sometimes and how done poorly it is and how sometimes it's just a pointless jump scare. They really touched on a lot of that. And in that same episode, they gave you another story where it's still horror, but it wasn't so much just jumpy and just like as microwave as some would say. But that's not really the point of jump scares done right. Because again, my favorite horror director, James Wan, does those masterfully. So, you know, there's that. But all in all, bro, I feel like this show kept me entertained. And for me personally, I think this was a good show to start off the Halloween season. I think that people will, if not anything, be entertained by this show. The acting was done really good as far as expressing the emotion that they had to express throughout the episodes. And I also feel like if they do decide to do a season 2, I think that they need to kind of show a little bit more in terms of what the anticipation was building up to. That's the other thing about it. I feel like towards the end, there were things built up to that I feel like weren't completely revealed. Now, I understand they do that for cliffhangers for season 2, which in this day and age, that's hit or miss. Because you may get one, you may not. And even if you do, it's 2-3 years later. I feel like to leave something for us to really hold on to, I don't really feel like they did that as good as it could have been done. But I do feel like a lot of what we needed in the middle of the story was given for the most part, if that makes sense. But I do feel like at the end, it was kind of a weaker ending for me. Like, for me personally, I feel like it was really weak. The ending was kind of like, eh. It was cool. I was really invested. I was interested in seeing what all was happening, why she was saying the things she was saying. They don't really explain most of that. They explain some things, but a lot of things that I feel like they should have explained, they didn't. Because if they would have, it would have gave more oomph to the ending cliffhanger. Y'all know what it is, man. Everybody that know I do music, they know I say know that all the time. Like I say that in my songs, I said that in interviews before. That's like my catchphrase, my slogan. That's my line. You feel what I'm saying? For my grading system, I'm gonna give it however many no that's out of 5. So for this one, I'm gonna give it. I give it a 4 no that's out of 5. Nutty. It was cool. It was good. I mean, you know, it was cool. It was real good.
I say it's too much pain in my heart to give you trust. The hate is real, I love the love, but that just ain't enough. I've been staying out the way, I'm just trying to run it up. It's just me, so I don't care about who talking about such and such. I try told them, but they never listen. Never fold, and I stay by my business. If it ain't broke, then don't be tryna fix. I try told them, but they never listen. I say I tried and I tried. They just kill my vibe. Shout it on her way and you niggas get too much pride. I say I gotta keep it on me, I'm just trying to survive. She got insurance on my rollie, I'm on